Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws podcast with East Forest. I'm East Forest. Today I have an episode that was recorded a little over a year ago, and it was when Radha and I came back from Maui, and we wanted to put a recorder down and get fresh from our fresh little brains all the little details, like what was it like to be there? What did we hear? What did we learn? What was it like being with Ram Dass? Because we were there for a week on Maui and went over his place several times. And so we just wanted to get that story out. And I've been holding on to this recording because I thought it'd be more relevant when the album was coming out. And the album's coming out on August 9th. It's getting really close. And so here it is. So this is like a conversation with myself and Radha. We recorded this here in Boise, Idaho in late June of 2018. And I think you'll enjoy it. There's lots of fun stories in there. Just to let you know real quick, we announced that the release event, the live event, is not going to be in Los Angeles. Sorry it just didn't work out. We tried. It's a long, boring story, but it's now going to happen in San Francisco on August 9th at a place called Envelop SF. And if you don't know about Envelop, it's something that Christopher Willits has helped to develop. And Chris Willits is a wonderful musician, super talented. He's going to actually be doing a remix of one of the tracks that'll be coming out probably in September. And he's part of a team that developed this Envelop space, which is I think it's 30-some speakers in a circular fashion. So they do spatial mixing. So you sit inside this large round of these towers of speakers, and you are literally inside the music. So it's going to be a really amazing opportunity for us to listen to the whole album in its full form, which is how it was always designed, on August 9th at Envelop SF, and really literally get into it. And then I'm going to perform live some tracks from the record. Chris Willits is going to perform probably his remix and riff off that, and we'll have time for a little Q&A. So that's on August 9th at Envelop Showcase at Envelop SF. There's a show at 8 p.m. and a show at 10:30 p.m. and tickets are now available on either of our websites, but just go over to eastforest.org, click on the tour tab, and you will see it. More about that when we have it, but we're also hoping to live stream definitely the Q&A and maybe the live performance parts. So look on social media and we'll put those live links if it's on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and you can join in and give some of your questions and stuff and be part of the conversation. And of course, you can host your own listening gathering too. If you want to do that, just do it. But you can have yourself, your friends, the public, you can bring them into a space and you can listen to the record too and have a discussion. If you want to email us at info@eastforest.org, we'll hit you up with all the lyrics and some suggested discussion questions, a Ram Dass talk that gets into some of that stuff deeper. It's all just stuff, fodder to use or not if you want to put together an event in any way that you see fit. It's mostly just a way to get to know your community, get to know the others, and celebrate this work on August 9th. I'll be in Cape Cod in September 21st through 22nd at the Love Yoga Festival. And of course, the East Forest Retreat is September 26th through 29th in Boulder, Utah. We got a few spots left for that. It's amazing. I highly recommend checking it out. The Science and Non-Duality Conference in October. And I'm also going to be in Burlington, Vermont. Did I say Burlington, Vermont? At September 19th, Burlington, Vermont. Higher Grounds, my first time there. So before we get into this conversation, I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Radha, Marissa Radha Wepner. As you'll hear in this story, she got her name Radha just like I got my name, Krishna, when we were there. And we talk a lot about that and what it's like to get a new name. You can hear in our voices when you listen to this, we were so fresh coming back from Maui. We were very excited. But, she's someone who's been with me on this project in particular from the beginning when I had the vision for it, and she shared that vision. And as you'll hear, going out with me and being a support when we were out there recording it and with Ram Dass. But she's given me lots of feedback on the songs and been a sounding board on the project. I mean, she introduced me too to like the painter Elizabeth Hilton, who painted the Ram Dass painting and the Maharaji painting that you will see when the vinyl and CD comes out. She even organized the whole Chapter 1 a release event, just like basically our public listening gathering that we did here in Boise for Chapter 1. So she's been awesome. I mean, she's my partner, and so she's awesome in that way. But I just wanted to honor what she has contributed to this particular project, and it's been profound. And so I'm really happy to be able to do this podcast with her and bring her into the process and let her be a voice on that. Speaking of Elizabeth Hilton, the painter, she got in a really rough bicycle accident. She was hit by a car a couple days ago and smashed up her leg. And so we're going to go visit her today in the hospital. But I really feel for her because some of you might know that I broke my left arm from a bicycle accident twice, 5 years apart. It was exactly the same accident, how I fell and horribly broke my arm and had all these plates and screws, and I had a third surgery, several years after the second one to remove all that stuff. It was kind of an 8-year journey. And as you can imagine, for a musician, that's tough. It's really tough. And so I know what that's like all too well to go through something like that and the thoughts that go through your head when you're really feeling it. And so I feel for her. So for any of you out there, if you've got a broken bone or had an accident recently, it's just to say that it will get better. It's not the end of the end. And, we feel for you. We feel for you. You're burning through some karma. Okie dokie. So let's get into this. This is my conversation with Marissa Radha Wepner in June of 2018, just after we got back from Maui with Ram Dass.
Trees.
So I want to take a moment for the two of us to get into this trip we had to Maui in June. Well, it's fresh in our heads. Just as a way for us to kind of, sometimes you tell a story about something, and then the story becomes the memory.
Yes.
It's sort of inevitable. That's how our brains work, I think. And so I kind of wanted to talk about it to keep it as fresh as possible and get a record of just sort of what came up in case we forget things.
Which we will do.
So,
But the feeling sense in our heart, I think, will always be there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most potent and lasting things that we have right now, I'd say. And the beautiful memories.
Yeah. So I really wanted to just kind of maybe go through just the experience and just take it from there.
Well, I think maybe a good place to start would be, how did you get there? How did you get us there?
Maharaji, I guess, now is my realization.
Well, yes, Maharaji brought us both there.
The details, basically, I was asked at the New Year. Tim and Isabel and Rachel and I, the management team, have a start of the year meeting. Sort of try to be step outside, very global, very dreamy, right?
Yeah.
So we were down in Laguna Beach having this meeting. We're having brunch at this, what's that place called? The Ranch? It's called The Ranch? Or the wedding?
I think it is called The Ranch.
The Ranch.
It's
So we're
spot.
outside. It's really pretty. We're having this nice lunch. And Tim asked this question, which is an interesting question for anyone. Oh, fuck. Well, one of the questions was there were several questions, but
I'm sure he asked you lots.
Well, there were it was a 3 or 5 part question thing. And one of them was if you had $1 billion and how would you spend it? And this is an interesting caveat. The world will know how you spend it. It's public how you spend it.
Okay.
And I thought that's interesting. And how would you spend it? Not $2 billion, $1 billion. Okay. And when you die, how would you like to be remembered? Mm-hmm. Or what do you want to be remembered for? That kind of question. And there was another couple. But those two, one of them I answered, my $1 billion involved things like buying some land and having a dog sanctuary,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But one of the things is like the main project would be to basically buy like an Esalen type property.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a psychedelic research center and retreat center for psychedelic journeys, particularly with psilocybin, and work to come up with a protocol that could be repeatable for a spiritual experience, this sort of thing. And something that could live way beyond me. It'd be like we could create
A repeatable protocol for spiritual experience, like a new religion.
Not a religion. So it's actually, the key of it was that it was not religiously based. It's that you come up with sort of like a protocol that you can take people through that will hopefully, through our trial and error and experimentation and research, would be giving a fairly reliable, positive spiritual experience, non-religious based. So there's nothing they can argue with. It's a felt experience.
Yes.
But there'd be like people to help you process before and after. And so it'd be basically the most powerful it could be in the safest way it could be, and the most beautiful way it could be. And hopefully we'd create something that could be scaled. Mm-hmm. So you could sort of teach this, and it could be a thing. It's like, yep, this is a really great way we've discovered for groups. This is the individual. This is the couples one, your a la carte one, whatever. And we'd be doing all this amazing research with neuroscientists and scholars and shamans and just figure it out, So I said that. And how do you want to be remembered when you die? For some reason, the way I answered it is a strange way to answer it. I said, I want the work and the legacy I leave to be remembered in the same way that Ram Dass's work and legacy is remembered. He's like, what do you mean by that?
Will be remembered.
Right, will be. Or like the effect, the ripples it has. And my explanation was, I just felt that not only has Ram Dass been his work and his ideas been a big influence on my life, mostly through his talks and his books, but I felt that the transmission and the information he was putting forth was beyond him. It was this beautiful sort of selfless universal knowledge. Mm-hmm. It was put forth in this really clean, beautiful way, and that it wasn't some kind of dogma. It was like there's this beautiful gift in the energy of it. And I was just like, yeah, I would like to have that same sort of energy of a legacy. So we kind of just left it at that. That was just we kind of let it float. And then months later, I think, or maybe less than months later, but I had an idea about potentially doing a project with different wisdom teachers. Mm-hmm. I was going to do 13.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that. We talked about
a massive project.
Which teachers we would reach out to.
We made a list. Yeah, mm-hmm. It was like it
was a pretty solid list.
Pretty ambitious list. Yeah, it was probably like Gandhi. It was like people who were dead. It was like, but I think it was like 13 grandmothers involved and like Gabriel. Lama. He might have been on there.
I mean, why not?
Ram Dass was on there.
Oh, he was.
And who else was on there?
Your friend
Charles Eisenstein, for sure, yeah. And maybe even Stephen Jenkinson, and just sort of modern wisdom teachers that just have a deep thing, and I wanted to weave their stuff into music, perhaps. And Tim, to his credit, said, why don't you just do Ram Dass? I think you should just do that. And I resisted at first because I thought, A, it wouldn't happen, and B, it felt gimmicky. And he was just very clear. He's like, I don't think so. Like, I really feel like, A, you've talked about this. I'm just reflecting back sort of your own wants and desires and interests. And B, I think it would be a really powerful thing to put out there in the world. Is this a long story? It's almost there. It's kind of interesting, I think. There's synchronicity involved.
Keep going.
We're getting to the good part.
Keep going. I'm so enjoying everything you're saying. And I know everyone else is too.
So we left it at that. And I think I was just sort of thinking, how? Right? And the obvious way is like, well, he's got all these recordings.
Yeah, like what, 50,000
Later
hours?
I learned, 50,000 hours of recorded stuff. So moving on, we were doing promotion for the Karen Deluxe album. And we had hired a promotion team. And working brilliantly. And it was, as promotion goes, PR is not something most artists enjoy because it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz. It's someone behind a curtain doing things and you don't really know what. They're charging you money. So it's sort of inherently frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say it was that way. It's nothing personal. I was just sort of, you always want more. You always want, I want more this and that, more press,
More
whatever.
outcome.
Sure. And that's just how it is. And we were having a hard time getting a premiere for the video, and it's Samuel and Jennifer. And Samuel got me a podcast interview with Mind Rolling Podcast, which is in the Be Here Now network, Raghu Marcus's podcast. And through that, I met Raghu. I did the podcast. Raghu's the executive director of the foundation, Ram Dass's foundation. And through that, I was able to pitch him this idea.
Yeah, and Raghu hosts with the Here and Now podcast that we love to listen to. It's Here
I think
and Now.
It's Mind Rolling is his.
Yeah, but
It's
he
called
hosts
the whole
Ram
network.
Dass
Yes,
Here and Now
correct.
podcast.
Yes, they have a whole network. Like Jack Kornfield's got one, and
Lama Surya Das
and Krishna Das. Anyway, what's really interesting about that is Samuel is Raghu's brother. Okay.
Oh.
Which I didn't know at the time, and we are like frustrated with this process and so forth, right? Right? Looking at it in that way, money way.
Yeah.
Getting my money's worth. Looking back, if it wasn't for working with them, I very likely never would have had any of these connections. Mm-hmm. None of it would quite likely would have come to pass.
So you didn't mind rolling with Raghu,
but it's a great lesson in you never know. You know that great Ram Dass story about you never know where you never know the things in life that are crappy like or hard, really hard, or your failure, or however you want to look at it. It's like the same thing happened with my TED Talk. I mean, it's a different story, but you never know.
Yeah. And same with your successes. Sometimes then those can turn on you.
Yeah. When you look back in life, I'm sure you've had that where you're like, wow, that little tiny thing.
Oh, for sure.
Or little decision or thing. Absolutely. And now look what happened.
Yeah. It's all big. It's all important. And it's all not.
Right. So anyway, I pitched the idea, and
you pitched the idea to Raghu.
To Raghu, and he to Raghu's amazing credit, he was interested, and then we had a meeting, and I remember same thing. Raghu's like, yeah, so it's 50,000 hours of audio. Let's dig in, and I really wanted to meet Ram Dass, selfishly, obviously, but I also had a real intuitive hit that I needed to record him, which is a difficult sell because of all this audio that exists. But everything I've done, every field recording I've ever used is one that I've recorded. And I like that because, excuse me, it's as if it's what the universe gives you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
in that moment.
Yeah, there are infinite crickets on the internet, but if I use the ones I've recorded, it feels like it's my journey. There's a reason why I have those. It's like those are the colors I've been given to paint with. And so I wanted to do the same thing with Ram Dass, and I knew that was a really big ask, but I felt that was important, and it was going to be important about the material I would be given. And that's what I'm supposed to put in the record.
Yeah, the direct transmission of right now.
Exactly. And to give Ram Dass the agency to say what he wanted to say.
And kind of better than you just listening to different recordings and picking out what you think you want.
Oh, kind of better? Like a million. First off, the idea of having to sift through all that stuff is a horrifying idea, like stressful.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
Mm-hmm.
It would take forever. Oh, you could sit there, be like, well, maybe I'll listen to one more.
Yeah.
I went to Rita's house. Rita Ryan, who does their archive and their IT, was the original director of the foundation. And we were going through the recordings by tags. They've started to digitize them, put them in an archive. And you hit a tag like, that one, exactly. So we'd avoid certain tags because it'd be, it'd be just like a terabyte of data. Mm-hmm. And so I'd have to try to get specific. And even then, we pulled up, oh my gosh, like 400 talks. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't even get them all downloaded while we were in Maui because there's so much data. And so there was even like this technological impedance to going that route
Yeah,
to some degree.
There was resistance there.
I was
No.
doing it because I was trying to cover my bases and be like, because look, you go Ram Dass, he's 87, and he has aphasia, and like all of us, he has good days and bad days, and his are more, bless you,
Excuse me,
more amplified. So there is a real possibility that even when I went over there, he wouldn't be able to talk.
Well, how did you then get you can come over and hang out with Ram Dass and record him?
Well, it wasn't really come over and hang out, but I mentioned to Raghu, he and I were talking about it, and I think I was trying to justify these reasons why I thought I needed to go. And then it just hit me that I said, Raghu, I'm making a record. I want to make a record focusing around Ram Dass's work and legacy. I think it's really important that I meet him, I look him in the eyes, soul to soul, and that happens, just that. And be like, this is happening. Thank you. And he was like, you're right. You need that. Yeah. You haven't met him. You definitely would need to meet him, whether or not you record stuff. And make, yeah. So I know that sounds crazy to fly all the way over to Maui just to look someone in the eyes, but it felt important.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was really the reason.
That's
and,
how.
And after that, I had to let everything else go and say, I don't know, I felt pretty confident I'd be able to walk over and at least look him in the eyes, even if he couldn't really speak that day.
Mm-hmm.
I had to give up, which was really hard to do. I had to give up the idea that we might not record anything.
You did pretty well with that. You were never overly confident, I would say.
So you were there. You came. I got there Monday. You got there Thursday.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we left Monday again.
Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you just to give a little logistical, you witnessed. And I'll get in. I went over 4 times.
To Ram Dass's house.
Let's just say 4 meetings, so to speak. 4 crossings.
Yes.
Yeah, they weren't all recordings, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you got there early. I said, don't wait for me. Go there as soon as you can.
Well, the idea being
there.
There's flexibility, because we had one date scheduled, and I was like, well, what if that's not a good day? Maybe, we can come in a little early just in case. Cover. That's the old German. I mean, he's like, let's just get any time I can get. 15 minutes there, 30 minutes in here.
You got there early a few days before the scheduled meeting, and then you were invited to a kirtan at Ram Dass's house.
Yeah, Tuesdays, I believe. I don't know if it's weekly, but it seems like it is.
Yeah, and met a lot of the Sangha.
It was a great introduction to kind of, you're not doing anything official. You're just sort of, you're there.
So you're a musician. Did you hop on the harmonium and give a chant?
Someone came, Rita came over, was like, would you like to play? And I didn't know. I was like, I don't know any kirtan songs. Like, what am I going to do? Get up there, ooh, just improvise.
That feels good.
Which I could have done. Other people were doing things, but it was all pretty fairly polished.
Maybe next time.
And I was a little bit like, I was sitting literally in the back of the room, like in a corner, like hiding.
Mouthing the words.
Oh, when I came in, it was like the perfect, like everything was sort of not going wrong, but it was a little awkward,
How so?
I came in and Rita's so sweet. She's like, I want to introduce you to Ron right away. I'm like, okay. And he's sitting there in his wheelchair, and there's a lot of people around, like 30 people around in the room. There's a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And she introduced me to him. Hello. And she kind of gestures to the couch next to him. It's like an open, it's not an arm.
Yeah.
So I sit there and I'm like, all right, great. Wow. I'm going to sit right next to him for the kirtan. And as I'm like sort of introducing myself, there's a guy to my back perpendicular.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I'm in his space or something or bumping into him. And he's like, very curtly, like, you should know that you're in someone's space and you're bumping into me. And I'm just like, oh, I'm terribly sorry. I'm just trying to like find my place.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, Dasima, bless her heart, who's sort of Ram Dass's caregiver last. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It says, you need to give him some space and sit somewhere else. And I'm just like, I was asked to sit here. I'll go anywhere you like, so then I moved to the corner.
Vanished.
Yeah. So that's how it started. Because I felt a little like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Because you didn't.
I didn't. I just walked in the house. I'm trying to be like, what's the scene? Yeah. What's the vibe? What's the deal?
I'm the new guy on the block.
Yeah. How do I fit in and not make waves, basically?
And you did the kirtan, which, as you just said, you don't know the songs, which I just love. I would have just been ecstatic to be there because it's one of my most
I
favorite
know.
things.
Well, yeah, the first one they give you lyrics for, and then the
Yeah,
rest are call and response. So,
yeah.
and it was beautiful. It was actually really nice sound,
Mm-hmm.
really nice sound, which I thought it was great. It was loud, and different people would offer a song, and some were not kirtan. And there was an 11-year-old boy, a little boy, who did one,
Yeah.
which is like it's like an angel's. It's the
Mm-hmm.
purest thing to do. His mother was the response, and all
Oh,
of us, and he was doing the thing, and
the
I was like,
harmonium.
wow.
Yeah.
And it's in the main room with the big puja table and
Yeah,
this
of Ram
giant
Dass's home.
giant picture of Maharaji, and it's the ocean's out the window. It's quite lovely. It's warm. Hot, but there's the ocean breeze to cool you off coming through the windows. And so
Did
the
you?
next day, Dasima had set me up with a quickie,
Yeah.
and so that was really the first time, and it was it was between like things at lunch.
You came back to Ram Dass's house and set up your recording equipment
Yeah, up in his study, and like he's having lunch, and which is not the best time like to do an interview after you eat for anybody,
Right.
because you're like digesting, and I'm putting like a fancy mic right by your like gullet. It's like picking up all like, and someone's just trying to like literally as he's finishing lunch, it's like go.
Wow.
So it's a little bit rushed.
But I mean, how was he with that? How did he feel?
He's fine. He's totally fine with it. But there was some funny stuff there. So he doesn't know me, and obviously he meets a lot of people. He's a lovely, 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 lovely man.
So open and warm.
So we're setting up and putting the mics up and stuff, and he he says something like, "Have you done this before?" I know he's thinking in his head like, who is this guy? And like, I hope that he has some experience at this. This is not a waste of my time. There's a little bit of
You
that.
look like a young kid.
Yeah, that was and I said, I'm older than I look, and I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never done where it's just one person, but this time we're going to just honor your work and do a whole record around your work. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then it was pretty much, he was fully game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a pretty powerful moment where, we finally got set up. They walk out of the room. It's just the two of us. And he, for the first time, kind of turns his head and looks at me in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I was prepared to just give it some space before we kind of jumped in.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just eye gaze with him.
Yeah.
Out of stunned awareness.
And the transmission and the beauty and the
there's nothing to
takes you
say.
beyond time
Yeah.
and space. Yeah.
And so I expected, actually, it was intentionally like, let's just give it some time.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting the emotional hit. And when he looked at me, it was like beautiful, love, purity, total attention. Like, I'm here with you. And he had this smile, and his head was cocked to the side. And I looked to his left, and there was a picture of Maharaji. There's pictures of Maharaji all over. Mm-hmm. But the one on the bookshelf just to his left was Maharaji sort of laughing. And it hit me suddenly that I was in Maharaji's grace in a way I'd never fully accepted or realized before. Meaning, I've always, you read these books, you hear these stories, these teachers, and I feel like I'm in their orbit. I'm on the outside.
Right.
And they're on the inside.
You're looking through a window inside the house.
My individuality, I am this person, but they're the ones who have that experience.
Yeah.
Because they're the teachers. They're whatever. They're my projection. And for the first time, I realized his soul and my soul were crossing paths as part of each of our incarnations, doing a dance here, a little dance. And not only was this real, but it was orchestrated by Maharaji. And I mean, you could look at that to mean orchestrated by the universe, however you want to see it. But I'm inside it. I'm not separate. This is my journey just as much as anyone's journey. Mm-hmm. And then I was realizing the universality of this whole thing. And that was so humbling and also profound to think about this person, Maharaji, that I have all these stories about. I was like, he loves me too.
He does.
And and he was laughing in the picture, just sort of like, you see? Ha ha ha. And that was quite profound. Quite profound. And I think the first thing I asked him after a few minutes of just looking at each other was, I said, look into your eyes and I see a soul's journey. And I know a lot more about your physical journey because, I have that benefit. You don't know much about mine, that's fine. But we started talking about the soul.
Yeah.
And the soul's journey. And he's great. You just ask him a question and then he kind of soaks that in, leans back, goes into his space, his soul space, trance space, and he riffs. And because of the aphasia, he might have 60 seconds between words, right? So it takes a long time to get an idea at 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Wavy Gravy who said Ram Dass used to be the master of the one-liner. Now he's the master of the ocean liner.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because later on when I would take out the breaks just so I could kind of hear the phrases, it was a perfectly constructed idea and sentence from start to finish. And part of the stroke affected his short-term memory, which is amazing to me that with all of that, how much work it must take to like track the idea and how much work it's like, I have the word, it's in my mind, and now I'm just trying to get it out of my mouth. And that for 20 years, he's been dealing with this and he does it with such grace, with such mastery, with such patience. And I was blown away by the poetry of some of the things he was saying. He asked me, he said, and obviously when I'm saying what he said, I'm speeding it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it didn't sound like this. But he said, I'm a quick learner. You can give me like advice or notes. And I was just like, are you kidding me? It's like, I have no advice for you. It's like, you just do your thing. Like, I'll just give you little prompts. And I told him, I said, Ramdas, you are like 99% poetry. He thought that was very funny. I was like, just keep doing this. It's perfect. So that was day one. It was only 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was actually like solid. We actually, some of the good material that we got for the record was in that session. He was in a pretty good space, and yeah, I think we hit 5 or 6 concepts.
That time.
Yeah, like death, soul. Talked about soul a lot. It's kind of like the bigger stuff.
Nature.
Why are we here? Like nature, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd ask a question like, people are, technology, like,
right.
And we're bereft of experience and grounding and a lot about, youth and nature is this solace and who we are and how do we get back to it. What do you have to say about that kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And then he just started saying poetry about nature. It was amazing.
It's going to be beautiful.
It wasn't intellectual. Like, that's what I loved about it. He knew exactly what needed to be.
Of course. And that again goes back to the trust of the transmission in the moment. Like, you don't know what you need and he doesn't know what you need.
What a blessing. Yeah, we were joking with him. I was like, dude, you're making a record. You're 87. How's that feel? He thought it was funny.
So that was your first meeting on Wednesday. And then you saw him again Saturday afternoon? That's when we went over, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, so the third time was Saturday. So we had some days off where I was trying to get over.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to happen. And eventually I totally rested into that.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I just went through the material, saw what we had. We did some snorkeling and relaxing. And I did a lot of field recordings on the whole island because I wanted to capture the sound of his landscape, which is mostly wind, which is really hard to record, but it's a really interesting energy and
the wind
sound.
Through the grass.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And the wind chimes.
Wind everywhere. Yeah, it's ever present. And there's a lot of rain. I got rain. Obviously the ocean. Lots of birds. Some amazing crickets at night. Amazing. And then all sorts of other things. But those were probably the biggest. elements. Yeah. So yeah, we went back. And then when we went back, it was great because now you kind of feel like you know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're starting from a very different place.
That was my first time there.
Yes.
So I was a little nervous.
So how'd that feel?
And you set me up with like, Dasima's very protective and maybe you'll be allowed to be in the room, but maybe you won't.
Yeah, like let's let go what we want.
Yeah, which I'm able to do pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk in and Priti was there, a guest who was visiting, and Govinda.
Govinda. It's one of the caretakers.
His caretaker, and Dasima.
There's one other. I missed his name, though.
Yeah.
The blonde guy.
Mm-hmm. I forget his name as
I
well.
wish I could remember.
But he was just finishing up. Maybe again, I think Priti and him were having a conversation. And I got to say hi, and I was really nervous and pretty starstruck. And I didn't want to be, I don't know. I didn't want to crowd him in any way. So
and he doesn't say much.
He doesn't.
Because it's easier for him not to, right?
Yeah.
So he's mostly communicating through his smiles and gestures.
But I had brought a gift of a print of a Hanuman painting that a friend here in Boise, Rachel Tenelak, had painted years ago. And I have the original of it that's quite large. It's probably
6 feet by 4, maybe.
And it's Hanuman leaping. And it's this kaleidoscope of colors. And in his heart is Sita and Ram. And then there's these small prints that I have as well. And so I brought him one of those. And he took it very graciously and held it in his hands for a long time, just kind of smiling and gazing and loving on it. And Dasima really enjoyed it.
He receives gifts so beautifully. Mm-hmm. I gave him that arrowhead thing from Dave Holliday. He was kissing it and asking all these questions. Where's it from? What's it?
That's a beautiful piece.
It's very kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, he loved the painting.
He did.
You gave him. Loved it.
And we'll send them more too. They'll get some more of those from Rachel. But then they brought him into the room, and Dasima turned to me and she said, "So, you will be the assistant today?" And I said, "Yes." Yes, I will be. And that was kind of my green light.
She has to size you up. Yeah. She's like, all right, you're okay, energy. Let me do the interview.
So they got him settled and to study again, and you set up the equipment, and I just kind of hung in the background next to him, but off to the side, and got to just witness and enjoy.
It was hot. I remember.
It was hot.
I took some pictures for us.
Mm-hmm. And then you began asking questions and recording, and we were kind of nervous that we wouldn't get very long, or that he might not be in a good space to talk,
or be interrupted, because I was interrupted the time before a few times to sign something, and it would cut the story short.
Right.
And if we don't get sometimes it's hard to use it if you don't have the punchline, so to speak, like the denouement or the yeah.
But we ended up getting a very long session with him, and
2 hours.
2 hours of sitting and talking, which was longer than we had thought that we were going to get. And I know there was the moment when you asked him about psychedelics.
That was amazing.
And
his first response,
a great one-liner. I don't know if you want to say it or you want to save it. It
well,
was so good.
Whatever. It's. He said the first thing he said. He did this all the time, where the first phrase he'd say was like gold, like colorful, evocative. Perfect, short.
This was the ringer.
He did it every time.
I thought to myself, Trevor could not be more delighted in this moment than that was just said.
I know. Yeah. Well, I think I want to say the question I asked him. I said, psilocybin for me has played a huge role in breaking me open, informing my music, my life, and it was one of the first things. It was the first thing that showed me this other side of the soul and myself and my life. Mm-hmm. And it was for him too. Psilocybin was the first thing that broke him open.
Yeah.
And I asked him about that experience and what role it's played. And it's just amazing that he's like, oh yeah, the first time I did psilocybin was with Tim Leary, Alan Watts or something.
Allen Ginsberg. Mm-hmm.
It's like a nice crowd.
Yeah.
And that's how the story started. But
You gonna say the line? Or you gonna say
Oh,
it?
and the first thing he said was psilocybin is my friend.
Psilocybin is.
But he sounds like
my
Gandalf, of
friend.
course. Yeah. And it's like, that's a ringer.
Whew, so good. And then he started to tell his story about the first time with psilocybin, and it turned into the Maharaji story.
Which is
He
a long
didn't
one.
stop. And I know both you and I are cognizant of we've got maybe we think 15 minutes left, and he just started the
This will take at least an
story.
hour. Yeah.
And so there was
Which it did.
there was this tension that I could feel and you could feel, I'm sure, with we're gonna not get to the points.
If you don't get to the reveal of that story, the story doesn't, it's not a story.
Yeah, there's no reason to have it.
Right. And it's a miracle story.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew we were going over time, and I knew Dosima was trying to be protective of his energy, and it was like, you probably should wrap up. But he's loving it. Like he
was
because
so
you can
in.
tell that, he spent his life loving to talk and give ideas out.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have as much opportunity to do it anymore, and it's difficult. So this was actually like a really wonderful opportunity for him to sit into a space where he can have the spaces. He's in his recliner.
Yeah. And he's being listened to.
And he can do his thing.
Just
and he's
go.
like, he's a master.
Oh,
he's
for
like, so
sure.
I want to flex that muscle. And boy, he was loving it. He could have gone, we finished and we were like, that was 2 hours. He said, I thought it was 1.
Yeah. Well, I felt us go into, when he started the Maharaji story, outside of time and space in order to have that time go to the end where it needed to go. It was like there was like a field around the room and the space that was not going to get interrupted. And I very much trusted that. And it didn't.
For the most part. And at the end, we were getting close. And I remember when I said, I think I added a line. I said, was it a miracle? And he's like, it was a miracle. I was like, thank God I got that line. He said it twice. It was a miracle. I was like, good. We got that recorded.
It was so beautiful. But what I felt for myself, it was just such a treasured jewel to hear that story from his words personally. Yeah. Like in the moment, I'm sitting with him and that transmission's coming through.
Oh, yeah.
It was such a huge, huge, huge gift.
Such an honor to like hear that stuff in the flesh. Yeah. It's amazing.
And some little different tweaks in it than maybe I've read before coming out of his mouth in that moment. Yeah. And we finished and we wrapped up. And then I finally felt like I got to go and say hello to him. And
oh, by the way, that took over an hour. I condensed it down. I took out the pauses to 7 minutes.
Wow.
7 minute story.
Wow. The whole thing?
The whole thing.
Wow. Wow. Again, a moment beyond time. It was beyond time.
Yeah. Which is also, as a side note, I want to get to that, what you're talking about, the experience there. But the use of tech as a way of transmitting these ideas. And it's perfect with this type of music because the pauses are irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And we can move things around to make them longer, shorter, just so it's the right rhythm with the music.
Yeah.
And then it becomes an advantage that he says things in bits. Then it was like, well, this is perfect. Now I can like put this here, and then there's a measure, and then another bit, and then a measure, and then another bit.
Yeah, it's kind of handed to you in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, I was explaining that to Raghu too, because of course he's thinking they just did that Netflix thing. Well, it was a few years before, but that's a straight interview. So he has to have a good day. Uh-huh. And I was like, Raghu, it's okay if it's like a hard day. It'll still be good for me because it won't matter. It's actually, I was like, it's okay, it's cool. That's because I know that was a concern.
Well, they were both good days. And we didn't talk much to people about the fact that we were going because I think it was kind of like we didn't want to jinx
until anybody.
Yeah. And so right before we left, did I finally start to say, because people are asking, where are you going? I'm like, well, I'm going to Maui. Why are you going to Maui? Well, I'm going to see, I hope, Ram Dass. And
I wouldn't even say that. I was just like, I'm just going to work on a project.
Well, I would say that. And I said it to a few people who were very happy to hear that. And of course, it was like, well, tell him I said hi, or wow, I wish I could be there with you. And so when we were finished, I had a moment where I could kneel down next to him in his recliner. And for me, that was a moment when I felt like I could give all the like well wishes and blessings from so many people that knew that I was there through me to him, and have him receive that and reflect it back. And it was just that gazing moment you spoke of
Yeah, it was beautiful. You two really connected in that moment.
Sweet. So sweet. And then after that, I got up to kind of check in with Dasima and tell her that we were finished, and you started packing up.
We were almost finished.
What do you mean?
Oh, you're right. We were finished.
Yeah, we were finished, and you started packing up, and I came back into the room, and you were kneeled down in front of him, and you had just said something to him that I didn't hear because I'd walked out. But what I heard him say back to you was, all you have to do is just ask.
See,
and then you got up.
Well, let me give a little context.
Oh, yeah, because again, I didn't witness.
So I was hanging out with Vishnu Das, who's just in the Sangha. He's a filmmaker. Amazing guy, around my age. And he moved to Maui for Ram Dass 10 years ago. Like, he came with 2 suitcases and a phone number. And basically wanted to be of service, and was sort of like the garden guy for a while. And anyway, just wanted to be, it was his path. Mm-hmm. And he's moving to Manhattan to work on this film. This is a much longer story. Anyway, he's a great guy. And he told me, he says, you can ask him for his spiritual name. I was like, are you kidding me? You just ask? It's like, if you want, and he could give you one. So that was in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And
we were finishing up, and as far as I knew, it was like, this might be the last time I see him. Ever. Maybe.
And maybe I want a spiritual name.
And it's like, you can ask or you can not. So it's like, I was told by Vishnu Das, who's really close to him.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll just trust that. So I leaned down and I said, Ram Dass, I don't remember what I said. If you're up for it, whatever, I said, I'd be interested if you're feeling like that's some kind of all these conditions. If you feel it's appropriate in this situation, that maybe you'd consider the thought about the idea of me having a name that is possibly spiritual or in that direction. I'd be open to some ridiculous thing. And he's looking at me with those eyes, a big smile. And he said something which you just said. I didn't really understand it.
That's what I heard him say.
And my assumption was he didn't understand what I was asking. And it was just a complete botch.
Well, he said, I heard him say, all you have to do is ask. And then you immediately got up. And it seems like you didn't get that he was giving you a yes.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my understanding was more like we just miscommunicated.
Yeah, I didn't perceive that. And I sat down then in the chair across from him while you packed up. We packed up a little bit.
It's probably more than 5 minutes passed, and he had his hand on his chin, and he was gazing at the ocean, and he looked deep. And my interpretation was, he's like, we're not here anymore. He's like in meditation, like he's thinking about something deep.
Yeah. And
I was like, it's nothing to do with us. And actually, my thought process was, Trevor, just give it up. It's fine. Like, let go of your desires. And I did. And I said, I said, I have another name. It's East Forest. And why do I need more?
So you were grumbling around all this.
And I actually went through a process. I gave it up, and I thought, like, why? It's fine. Yeah, I don't need a name. It's like, I'm not meant to have some other name.
So you'd gone into surrender.
Gave it up and continued packing up, doing the cables. I was even actually had moved on in my mind. I think I was about to talk about other things. And someone was playing kirtan in the main room. So I was kind of walking through the hallway.
Yeah. Govinda was, and his friend.
And his friend. And then Ram Dass just turned to me and said, Krishna. And I thought he was referring to the song, like something about the name of the song. And I said, oh yeah, that's something like that's the music. And he's like, what are you talking about? So he said again, Krishna. And I'm still a dumb blockhead. I'm like, I don't know that song. And you were like, that's your name. And I still didn't get it. And I'm like, you said, what do you mean? And you're like, he's giving you a name, dummy. And I said, because the first thought that comes to my head, well, maybe because of the aphasia, he's going to say Das or something. Because I thought all spiritual names had 2 parts.
Yes.
And I was like, if I walk out of here and for the rest of my life I got it wrong, that's worse. Like, it's a cosmic joke. Like, no, it's not just Krishna. It's Krishna Duihu. And you all your life you've screwed it up. So I said, is it just Krishna?
You said, that's it?
I said, that's it? Just Krishna, like Cher or Sting. And he thought that was funny.
And he again said,
Krishna. And then I started crying.
Yeah. And then you started
and
crying.
kissing his hand. And then I realized what was
very
happening.
sweet.
And he blew me open because, and he gave you the name Radha immediately thereafter.
Well, you had your moment with him, yeah. And I was, like I said, sitting in the chair across from him, just like beaming and taking all of this in and so happy for you. And what a beautiful scene to witness. And then he looks at me and he says, and you are Radha, which.
And he thought that was the greatest thing on the earth.
And he was
just like laughing and laughing.
And I laughed,
he just loved it.
I thought it was beautiful. Krishna, Trevor, didn't know that Radha is the consort, is the beloved, the divine partner of Krishna.
And I have a recording of this.
Yeah.
Which I'll probably play.
The recording was still going.
Yeah.
It was a really sweet moment. So beautiful. Ugh.
Yeah, and later what struck me is the precision by which he did exactly what I needed. And I've always sort of felt, and not that Trevor's not my name, but when I say it, it has a lot of R's, or Trevor. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of a little challenging to just the words of it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just flow out of your mouth. Yes. It's a little work.
Yeah.
And it's like, your name's your name. It's like, that's my name. So you live with it.
Yeah.
I never thought about ever changing. Well, as a little kid, I changed my name to Frank for like a few months, but I was like 6.
Story. That's funny.
There was something about it. And as you grow, some people change their name when they feel like they've grown so much and they want to have that represent their identity to help them not be in the past in a way. Mm-hmm. And when I would say the word like Krishna, just saying it now, and I say Krishna, and trying on that clothing of just the sound of it,
yeah,
it felt completely different than saying Trevor. Like the way the sounds come out, the vowel, the openness of it, and the K, the attack of the K, and the open A at the end. And it felt powerful in a way that made me feel maybe you can step into that. It's just your mind. Mm. You can choose to step into an openness and that energy. And he sort of knew that, almost like, that's what you need. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
I want you to see what
how does this... said, this is what you need.
But with credit to Ram Dass, I felt like he was listening and he tapped into that sense of like, I'm getting that you need to feel that.
Yes.
As part of your journey. And I was like, and I didn't even know that. And when I started to experience it, I was so humbled and struck by the power of that, just a sound, and how it makes me feel as a soul, as a person. And it's been quite profound.
Yeah. The next day we were out in Maui, kind of just taking our time and touring around and going to shops. And I kid you not, we can probably say that we saw in nearly every shop we went to, Krishna and Radha in some form. It was like on a pillow. It was a tapestry. It was a card.
It was every shop except the coffee shop.
Yes.
And you bought a statue for me of Krishna that you said is quite rare to see.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm in this world and I'm quite immersed, and I see Ganeshas everywhere and
Hanuman.
Shivas everywhere. No, you don't see Hanuman.
Oh, see, what do I know?
One of the first shops we went into, there was a gorgeous, probably like a 10-inch tall bronze,
blue bronze, painted bronze
Krishna statue playing the flute. That was so beautiful, and yes, very rare to see. You just don't see them.
That was the first one we saw.
It was the first one we saw. I bought it for you as a surprise.
Yes,
gave it to you later.
Very thoughtful.
Yeah. But that was
a wonderful memento.
Just the winking back from the universe of that to the both of us was, I mean, so present.
Yeah. Yeah. And, since then, it's only been about a month. And it's been really hard for me to own that name. I have a lot of self-consciousness. I mean, I've said that to people, like, it's just, I use conditions. I'll say, my name is Trevor, but my friends call me Krishna. I'll say something like that. Or like, my name is Trevor, but you can call me Krishna. Or my name is Trevor, but I just got the name Krishna. And all of it's like, and then a couple times I've just been like, my name is Krishna. And sometimes people look at you like, excuse me? Like one person said, good luck. Good luck with that. As if like, who the hell do you think you are? You know,
Who
and
the hell you are, Krishna?
it's hard. It's
And
hard.
it's
But
not-
that's part of the trip is sort of
Ooh,
like,
yeah, beautiful.
is not getting, it's like, I don't have to get hung up on my self-consciousness about whatever that means. And that's actually now what it's turned into. That's the trip. Is like my own hangups.
Yeah, and owning that vibration can bring you into another plane, like another place. It's like a welcome mat, like a doorway.
An invitation.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to be in soul space.
Yeah.
And that's what's so amazing about it, because it's like when someone says good luck or they laugh these things, it's because I'm not stepping into it. And I mean that meaning I have these like qualifiers that I can read
Yeah.
that are in my body language of like, but I'm not really that. Or
Well, it's also kind of a big deal. I mean, it wasn't Krishna Das. It's not servant of Krishna. It's not Krishna something else. It's like Krishna, like just Krishna, which is not to freak you out, but
it's a little freaking me out. But
so huge and so beautiful. And I mean, I see that in you completely.
it freaks me out on one hand. On the other hand, there's a part of it that inside without my mind. It's like, that's perfect.
Oh, it's
I don't
so
mean what it means and how it feels.
Yeah.
How it feels.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like a warrior.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about before this trip that one of the antidotes for depression and that sort of energy with me is I had a hit. That's like, I need to step into that warrior energy, the energy of action, of physicality, of courage, of action. And that's in the moment. Even the breath is a form of action, or yoga, any of these things. It's like, these are things that'll help you not sink into that mind space.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder. And so that name, I don't know a whole lot about Krishna. I look forward to hearing more stories and reading, but I know a little bit about like the Bhagavad Gita and about battle and that whole story and stuff.
He was the charioteer of Arjuna who was going into battle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And he's love.
and doesn't he have a flute? He's got the flute.
He's lover. He's many, many, many things. He's magic. He's God. He's God.
As we all are.
Yeah.
So to wrap up our journey,
We got invited.
we got one more
Yeah.
sesh, but it was perfect. Not recording, but he swims every Monday, God willing. And a lot of the Sangha shows up. We were invited. And we're like, hell yeah, we're going to go swimming in the ocean with all you.
We'll get there an hour early. Out, make sure we don't miss
I
this.
am not missing a good swim in the ocean.
With Ram Dass. And so his team brings him down, his Sangha brings him down, and they walk him down the beach.
Well, they don't walk him. They wheel him.
Yeah, they wheel him down the beach and put him in the water, and he's got all of his life vests on. And then we all go in with him. You know, we're swimming, so we're not touching. It's like past the waves. And then we float back down to where he came in. So it's this wonderful float session with the current.
That's super fun.
Singing and chanting and laughing. I think we laughed like 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, it's
in the
mostly
water.
laughing. And then just like, it's only like 20 minutes, maybe 30 at the most. But
Yeah.
and you actually get exercise. It was like perfect.
Oh, yeah, you're swimming.
Oh, we were throwing a bouncy ball around.
And he says, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
And then it's call and response.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was fun. Met a lot of good people that day.
Really beautiful people. And we got to say, I'm Radha
Yeah,
and this is Krishna.
yeah. Even them, some of them were like, what's your name? I'd say Krishna. And they're like, okay.
One man said, I thought I was going to meet Krishna today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then we went to brunch. Had a lovely brunch, all of us.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Sat with him
Wonderful.
there.
We had
brunch in
Arnold
Sangha.
Palmer's all around.
Arnold Palmer's for everyone. It was
Yeah.
such a beautiful view of the ocean. I mean, it was just
It's
magic
just the best way to wrap up.
essence.
Yeah.
Just so. I just feel so blessed and so fortunate and so grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful.
It was cool to listen to Ram Dass tell someone sitting next to him, like, yeah, that guy, we're making a record together. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we are. We've got you in the can now. It's going to happen. We're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got to spend more sweet time. I would take the opportunity, of course, and give him kisses when I gave him hugs, which delighted me to no end.
He's very giving with his energy, just
so
unbelievably
loving.
giving, just
So
endlessly. He's just in that love space all the time. It's wonderful. And then we left the next day. And then we went after that snorkeling and saw a shark.
Which was kind of intense.
Very intense.
Yeah,
like
right
a
after the
5-foot
brunch,
shark.
we found a turtle beach. Every beach is Turtle Beach almost in Maui. But swimming, snorkeling with sea turtles, it was just heaven. It was so gorgeous.
A little deeper water, but...
We swam around a cove a little bit. And I remember...
It turned our heads and we're like, that is a large shark about 10 feet from us.
Yeah, 4.5, 5 feet, white tip, reef shark.
Like classic looking shark.
Oh, God. Yeah. And we immediately did the same thing, which was...
Freaked out and beelined it back. But you can't look behind yourself when you're got the snorkel stuff on. So you have no idea if that thing's following you or...
I didn't feel like it was following us. It's so
you
primal,
don't know.
the fear.
You don't know.
The fear is so...
Very primal, and you're in the water, so you're very, very vulnerable because you have almost no options other than moving in a direction. Whereas you see a bear on land, you both live on land. It's your turf too, even though it's scary. This was extra scary because of that. It's like, there's nothing I can do here, but just go.
It was not far. It was like 10 feet max
10
away.
10 feet, yeah.
And it could be from
diagonally down.
That moment to us in a second.
Oh, yeah. Just because it wants to.
Yeah. Even though it didn't care that we were there.
Well, later on, we found out it was a reef shark that eats octopus and fish. They don't deal with people, but it could if it was crazy.
It wasn't a crazy one, fortunately. No. We were safe. It was good, but
I'm sure it seen people a lot, but
that was a moment.
Bucket list checked off. Swim with sharks in the ocean. And I was pretty much done with snorkeling after that. I was like, I think we're good. So that was pretty much a trip. Flew back and, just been working on it since then. And have anything come to you? Has anything percolated through? I've had a few actually deeper experiences that have resonated from that. I'm curious if you have.
I got the original Be Here Now when I was 22. I'm on the way to my teacher training, which is a gorgeous story in itself. And I loved it and have given it away so many times over the years. And recently just got another version for myself. And I brought it with me to read it while I was flying over. And I don't think I have read it probably. And
you read it cover to cover?
Cover to cover on the plane, on the flight over.
Yeah. And
I had a moment when I was reading it that just broke open my heart again, and I was literally just weeping. It was so profound and right and beautiful, and so much I had forgotten that is part of who I am. And I absolutely believe, reading it then when I was so young, being able to look back and see the things that have completely become part of who I am in the world now, but not maybe knowing like that's where that came from. It all mixes together anyways. But yeah, that was really, really beautiful. And that was on the way there. And like I have been for many years, I just almost all the time immerse myself in his teachings because it's something that I return to again and again. And
I gave you one of his books for your around Christmas time.
You did.
Way before this was going on.
I think it was even before Christmas. When did you give me that? Maybe it was for my birthday.
It's February.
Yeah, you gave that to me.
But it was a while ago.
It was Love Everyone, which I...
And Polishing the Mirror, too. The newer one. The new book. Yeah. One was Christmas, I think, and one was... Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Trevor and I both have had a love affair with Ram Dass and Maharaji for years, and we share it together, and it's one of the things I love about our relationship. When I was reading Love Everyone, though, I was at 1440 working... And I had a moment there, I think I've described to you, like that Satori moment of when I was... Do you remember this story?
Which trip? 1440?
It was in March, I think. And I had just finished reading Love Everyone. And I was in the kitchen table having breakfast in the morning. And it's like you're not... a zone where you're not just on your devices. And I was by myself, and the tendency is to like pick up your phone. But a friend had called me in the morning and relayed a dream to me that was actually quite powerful. And I was like, well, I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to write down this dream that my friend called that seemed pretty significant. So I took out a journal, I started writing, and in that moment, just like a sentence or two in, it was like I had a flash in my mind of like Hanuman and his heart open with Sita and Ram. And I look up and it was like I had, I don't know, it's so hard to describe. It was like I could see everyone's choice of human existence and how we were all pretending to not be as great and divine and powerful and godlike as we are, almost because it's easier to not. It's like recognizing how hard it is to own how much power we have, and so we intentionally keep ourselves out of soul space knowing in order to have the human experience. And it all of that washed away, and I just started crying, and I cried for like 4 hours. I couldn't stop it.
This is after the trip?
This was while I was at 1440.
And no, I mean after Maui.
No. It was just
Before.
Yeah, I was just bringing to mind that experience I had had before with his work. And so what I was saying was before the trip, leading up to this trip, I've had a lot of deep moments.
Sure.
With
in
this.
life.
in life, but that are directly related to
yeah.
this. And I have still been in that soul space of that moment, and I can recall it. And for months afterwards, even when I would just think about it, I would want to cry again out of the sense of compassion for humanity and where we all are and who we all are.
Yeah, for me, it's been more as talks. Definitely Be Here Now as a book was awesome. I've given that to many people. But yeah, obviously I'm an audio guy. And so listening to the talks, I've heard so many of them, and they're so good. I mean, it's like him, Terrence McKenna, all these old classic talks. Some of them are just amazing.
Yeah, Alan Watts.
All of them. Even the new ones. And I love like the Psychedelic Salon turned me on to a lot of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But something that resonated for me afterwards, and it still is, and has been this notion of trust and really trusting this greater guidance of how things are unfolding, and that it's really perfect. And that's can help me to do the work of trying things and reaching out to people and all this sort of stuff, but being okay with how that pans out, because it's exactly like we're talking about at the beginning, where you never know. Mm-hmm. And maybe something feels like a disappointment, like a certain featured artist says no, but now I'm like, fine, because maybe that could have been a horrible problem or delayed things, or the song would be actually really, it's not a good fit, or energetically, or who knows what.
Yeah, you don't have to know why. And just trusting.
And so it's this new level of what does it feel like to trust a process unfolding, and that's been really interesting and nice to work with and dive into.
That's a powerful lesson for you.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend like it's something I've quote unquote solved, but it's wonderful to get into that.
Yeah, well, you've had
and really, really feel it.
Direct experience of trust.
Well, the Maharaji is what's making it real, and that story I relayed in that moment. Those are the little miracles where it hits you hard, which literally in your face. And Ram Dass was sort of in between us, laughing too, like, "Now do you get it? Huh? This guy over here, this Maharaji guy. Let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
Mm-hmm. It's the real deal." Yeah.
So it's been beautiful, and at this moment that we're recording this, it's very much still unfolding, and I'm excited to let it continue to do its thing. The more you trust, I feel, the more you're in service of your soul and something greater in the world. And it's a beautiful place where you can release the grasp a little bit, maybe a lot.
Trust is surrender.
It's not easy, and I don't want to pretend, for everyone it's different, but it's simple.
To trust is simple.
It's not easy, but it's simple.
Well, and it simplifies your life too. It simplifies your mind. It moves you into heart space. You're living
Soul
in your
land,
heart.
as you
Yeah,
would say. Yeah, and I don't want to diminish. I want to honor my mind too. My mind's just trying to protect me,
of course.
and I honor that. But what's the line? Your ego, your mind is a
It's a
good
servant, not
servant,
the
terrible
master.
master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to have the heart mind activated, that's from a place of trust and compassion and peace and wisdom.
Well, yes, and people, this idea of your heart wisdom or intuition and all these things. I feel like that's what it is. Your heart mind is the same thing as soul space. Is the same
Yeah.
thing as that's that listening that comes from silence, or that comes from stillness, and it's something I know. But these are great practices of really feeling it and seeing it, and just meeting Ram Dass and even a lot of people in his orbit who are doing a lot of their own work and who've been doing it for a long time. That's one of the things I love so much about him is he's been walking his talk for so long. And that to me is a million times more inspiring than any idea that someone puts in a book.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've met authors and then you're like, oh, what a letdown. Like your ideas are great, but you're a mess, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, I always feel bummed. And the ones I meet, it's rare that Charles is that way. Where
Yeah,
they
for sure.
walk the talk, it's like, oh, hell yes. Like, I want to hear more of your ideas because you're experimenting with yourself and you're really trying it. And Ram Dass is someone who's been doing it for so long, and we know his journey, where he came from.
Right.
So it makes it feel like, well, I could do that too.
Right.
He came from a similar, like, you know, he went through a real journey
He
of
was very
breaking
worldly.
through the American rational, I mean, deep in it. Harvard, you know, probably an atheist. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just want to say he went from mind-heart integration in such a beautiful way in his life that it's something we all could achieve, and it's not a mystery, and it's just about trust and practice and
grace.
and grace.
And when the time is right, it happens also.
Well, and that's that trust too. Like every soul's journey is important and unique, and I'm still just struck that the dances we do and how they cross, and it's like,
Whoa.
well, sorry. No one's orbit is outside. There is no orbit,
Right.
and that's what hit me. It's like we're all co-conspirators for sure.
Oh, yeah.
In ways that are just so beautiful. So
And the guru is the self, is God, is it all, and it's all one.
is you.
And
He said, yeah, the guru
Right.
is you.
so it's so beautiful. I just feel immense gratitude for you and for Ram Dass and for the time that we've got
Yeah.
to share.
Well, that was a good wrap up. Anything else?
No.
All right. Well, I'm glad we could do it. Well, there it is. That was fun to listen back to our giddy, excited energy. Thanks to Radha so much for giving us her time. And thank you again, Radha, for everything you've done in this project. It's been really awesome. Really, really, really amazing. I hope to see you on the road, eastforest.org/tour. Check out the dates and host a listening gathering. Join us for streaming in when we do our gathering, our listening gathering in San Francisco, because August 9th is the release of this record, and it's amazing to see how far it's come from, you know, listening to that recording like a year ago and then making the record and getting it out there and releasing the first 3 chapters, and here we are. Chapter 4, as you know, if you haven't picked up on it, is just the whole record. So it's going to have 2 new tracks and 14 tracks in total. So thanks for listening. Thanks for reviewing this podcast. Please do it. Just write a review. It's awesome. It makes me feel good. It makes people think about listening to this podcast. So just give it 5 stars and write a little comment review. Please, 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 please. You keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit. But when you do, folks, do it with grace. Do it with grace.
and the clouds and the waters. When you hug a tree, you're hugging yourself. We are human beings. Human beings are part of nature. When you're seeing the ocean or the lake or the river, you're seeing yourself. Nature is a manifestation of God. In that manifestation, it's love all the way.